Hey everyone. What if you could convert more website visitors and improve your ad performance without redesigning your entire website? In this episode, I sit down and I talk with Todd Lebo, CEO of Ascend2, and Andy Crestodina, CMO of Orbit Media Studios. We talk about how to build website landing pages that really convert. Andy shares some of his best copywriting tips as we talk about holistic marketing strategies that work all the way through the funnel. They share some powerful questions that you can ask your customers and top salespeople so that you can design psychological triggers on your pages to incentivize more profitable actions. And then they show you how to use your analytics data to identify where you're losing leads and how to better engage with your visitors. This is a good one. So let's get into it.
We have had lots of conversations over the last several weeks about, like how do you come up with a way to be able to know that you're putting, your dollars to work. There's just been this sort of epiphany for me over the last, I don't know, couple of weeks where, you know, the there's so many marketers that sort of optimize or work based on job title, right? And so what you'll see is, the design person, has their certain like way that they're measured, and then you got your demand gen person, and they've got the way that they're measured, and they've got a certain set of KPIs, and then you've got your certain KPIs for your email marketing specialist, and you can sort of just go down the list. And the challenge for that is it's really, really difficult to optimize in a vacuum, right? You can't do it. You have to look at things like it's a holistic approach from beginning to end. And I think that comes in the form of both your thinking and and the way that you attack the problem in your team and how they organize around it. And then also, in the tech stack or the marketing stack that you use that sort of serves you and serves that goal. So, at the end of the day, we really, as marketers, we have to really focus in on sort of a holistic, view and understand like how all of the team works together to sort of lead up to the KPI, which is revenue, right? And that's key, right? That's what really, really solves problems and what really grows businesses and drives revenue.
Anyone recognize that guy? Jacob Nielsen, Nielsen Norman Group, famous usability researcher. He did a study in 2004 where he gave a bunch of users a bunch of tasks and a bunch of websites to measure the success rate for websites in general. Kind of an ambitious. Todd's getting ideas. How could we see if the internet is good? And then he did it again in 2016 to see if the internet had improved, and basically not just concluded that yes, usability and conversion and the web has gotten a bit better, but why things fail, why people don't convert, why people can't complete a given task. And the main answer was findability. It's the number one reason why you and me and Eric and Todd and everyone else watching this has trouble performing a task on a website is that there's missing information. It's not that the design isn't fancy enough. In fact, fancy design is one of the reasons why things fail, according to Jacob Nielsen. So if you break down to Eric's point just now about the ultimate KPI, right, getting the person to act, revenue, this visitor doesn't get over here to the goal and convert unless the answers in this first arrow is bigger and stronger than uncertainty, which is this is like vector geometry, right? You want to get that person to get over to that goal. So our job as marketers, and to the first point about this isn't going to be an expensive effort, probably. This doesn't require an invoice or a budget or a statement of work or a designer or a programmer. It's just content. You can log into WordPress or whichever you're using, whatever system you're using, and improve your site right now from that findability perspective without a big investment, right? It's just a matter of knowing your audience and what their information needs are. So what we do when we build sites, and this is almost not even believable. We launched 3 sites yesterday. We do 60 sites a year. We've done more than 1,000 since the beginning. Our approach to building websites is to start with this big bit of qualitative research, interviewing our clients' clients. If you've ever been to any conversion conferences and they talk about what works and how to get better results, sort of weirdly, like if a more junior marketer might expect to hear tips about button color or something like, visual hierarchies. That's all relevant, potentially relevant. But what really matters is the information needs the audience findability to solve for X, solving for X, answer people's questions. So I've collected questions over many years that I've heard conversion optimizers bring up at these conferences, and I'm going to show a bunch to you now. Talk to a prospect. Okay, before I jump in, Eric, your point about holistic marketing was perfect, because rather than salespeople judging themselves based on sales and marketers judging themselves on marketing, really, we have to jump over that silo. And if the marketer understands the audience, if they're like a market expert, not just marketing, but an expert on the market, and they know why people buy and don't buy, to do that, now you can make a great page. To do that, you've got to ask questions like this. Take me back to that moment when you first realized you needed help. This is me talking to my target audience, my current customers. What else did you try? And what didn't you love about it? What almost kept you from buying from us? Anyone out there, does an answer jump to mind? Why don't people hire you? Very important information. What made you confident enough to give us a try? Right? This is messaging prioritization, right? I'm going to make a better page if I get these answers. What made our company the best option for you? Messaging prioritization. I can go make a better page. What can you do now or do better that you couldn't do before? You're going to hear your value proposition in their words, not just so you can go write, but you can actually use their words. You let your audience write your copy for you. Can you give me an example of when this made a difference for you? Todd does original research for people. Talk to 50 clients, ask them how that helped them, and then use that language on those pages. If you couldn't work with us ever again, what would you miss the most? What's the number one thing you would tell a friend if you wanted to convince them to hire us? This is, you're getting these slides, of course. Go rewind, watch this, you get the recording. Happy to share all of this. You can also ask questions just to your top sales associates and get even more insights. For example, what questions are you just sick and tired of answering? In my experience, if you ask salespeople what question do people ask you a lot, they'll kind of like hem and haw, they're not sure. But if you ask them in a different way, what are you just tired of explaining to people? They'll have a good answer.
Yeah, people like to complain, right?
They'll
tell you everything you want to know.
Yep. If you trigger the rant, they're going to go on and on instead of you having to pull it out of them. Big difference. Some of these are redundant by design. What should people ask you, but they don't? That's if you've ever read The Challenger Sale. Again, to Eric's point, holistic marketing. Good marketers read sales books. That's an awesome book for a marketer to read. It's basically about content marketing, but it doesn't call it that. It calls it just like educational content or something. But answering the unknown, solving for the unknown need, bringing up, they talked to 5 people, but you didn't just answer their questions. You raised this other thing that they didn't know they needed to think about. What was the aha moment that prospects have during a sales call? What analogies do you use to explain what we do? If people can work with us, even if what? My webpage needs to do some objection handling. What objections need to be handled? This question elicits that. So now I'm going to combine that with Joanna Wiebe, who is credited with kicking off the conversion copywriting industry. She's from Copy Hackers. She does a presentation called Money Words, where she breaks down the grammatical forms that tend to correlate with success. They write landing pages and emails. Because, actually she left this off her list because everyone talks about it. Use the word because. It's going to force you to get to the why. This is an example, a technology buyer. We offer on-site installations because not everyone wants their data in the cloud. You should have access to your data from anytime, from anywhere. Already and still. Use this in your next sales page, right? In your next email. You've already upgraded your network, but you're still having performance issues. It's going to be awesome copy. This is going to work well. The truth is, because everyone wants to feel like they're a logical decision maker, the truth is that cloud-based applications still crash, no matter what they promise. Even if you can, this is the objection handling, you still have 100% access to anywhere, even if your services are on site or whatever the case. I'm kind of making this up. Now watch, I'm going to put it together, guys. Watch this. I'm going to take the question, use the answer, and build a web page. For example, I'm interviewing a client. I asked them, when evaluating options, what was the most important thing? Oh, security was number 1. Scalability was number 2. Now I know how to make my page. Question, answer, content. Give me an example of when this helped you. Oh, you guys really saved my bacon that one time. Testimonial, quotes. You guys really saved my bacon. I can't write copy that good, right? Only the audience can write copy that good. Everything I write is automatically marketing. Everything they write is social proof. You see that? You can't write copy as good as they can. What was the biggest challenge you were hoping to solve? I wanted better insights, not just dashboards. Already and still. You already have dashboards, but you're still not getting insights. Wow, the visitor's going to say, wow, this page is like reading my mind. What can you do now that you couldn't do before? Now I don't have to run that damn report every time. Stop running the same reports again and again. What analogies do you use to, I'm talking to the sales team now, what analogies do you use to explain what we do? On-site installation is like owning your own home. It's like your house. You should own your own home. See how that's gonna, we know that's like a market tested chunk of language that is used in sales meetings all the time, but the salespeople don't think, holistic marketing gap, to push sales messages up into the marketing funnel. That's what the marketer can do. What questions are you tired of answering? Oh, people keep asking me, what if we want to cancel my contract? They can cancel their contract anytime. It's not even a contract, it's month to month. Hey, have we even said that in our marketing yet? Oops, we missed an important objection. Address it, cancel anytime. What questions should people ask you, but they don't? People never ask us about how well we test, how good we are at documentation. Now look, I'm going to use the fact is, right? People want to feel like they're logical decision makers. The fact is 80% of software installations are never fully tested or documented. I got data. If you don't have data to support your assertions, talk to Todd. Put these things together, and you've got what I called the perfect B2B service page, not just for B2B. This works for anybody. But fundamentally, what is a web page? It needs to guide the visitor's thinking by using a visual hierarchy to align with messaging priority, taking them from answer to evidence, answer, evidence, answer, evidence, call to action. That's the structure of a high converting page. Solve for X, satisfy people's information needs. Jacob Nielsen was warning us, findability is the big problem. So high converting pages are pages that answer the visitor's questions and satisfy their information needs on the topic of the product or service.
So here's the thing, if you sort of like put it all together, I love your approach, Andy, because what ends up happening is, you pre-answer the questions, that are top of mind for your perfect ICP, your perfect customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, now, I think, of course, naturally up funnel, I think, okay, well, now let's go to the ads. Like, how do you test messaging, and what is it that that your prospects are responsive, are responding to in the ad, right? So this can be very useful just for the ad, right? There's the core question that's burning, on somebody's mind. You are triggering that right there in the ad. It's going to give you better click-through rates, gives you lots of, and here's the thing too, is you just laid out, I don't know how many questions, like 6 or 8, sort of like core questions that a prospect or, would have, as sort of defined by your sales guy. But the just working up funnel, like every one of those could be a set of ad creatives, right? You could test every single one of them, figure out which one's pulling more. You can sort of get real-time data on what it is, what your pain points are that your prospects are having. I love that. This is great.
Yeah, from the visitor's perspective, I mean, if you ask, someone once asked me, it's like, in one word, what must our website do? My word was answer, because that's why the visitor, go look at your own browsing history. Why did you go to all those websites? It's like you want it for, to get information. Marcus Sheridan, the popular marketing speaker, talks about FAQ content. That he just wrote a book, like they ask, you answer.
Yep.
But what you just said is interesting and works well with this framework, because I'm an analytics guy from way back, but the problem with analytics is it only shows you what works out of the things that you've tried. If you go back and do some qualitative research and talk to your audience, you'll get new ideas for things to try. You can test different messages, you can create different ads and get more data. That high click-through rate from this message, cool, let's include that on the page, or let's build that into our content. Hey, this page is, I'm getting this question a lot from this audience. Let's put that message into the ad. So you can see how that'd be a nice feedback loop, as long as these groups aren't too siloed within the org, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think, you also, if maybe you're an earlier stage company, right? You're a startup and you are, the sales team, right? As an individual, and as you're talking to people and you're developing, who your perfect sort of customer is or perfect prospect is, you many times don't know what it is, your final sort of pitch, value proposition really is. And so, it takes a lot of time, and time equals money, right? So if you could sort of accelerate that, which is what, some people use our platform for. And this is, by the way, is not a pitch or anything. It's just, we see people that are testing ads all the time. And I never, it's funny, when I first started with Perfect Audience, I didn't realize that that's what they were doing. I was like, man, why are they spinning up a bunch of campaigns and then pausing them and then spinning up a different set of campaigns, or testing different types of campaigns against each other? And the reason why was because they were trying to hone in on their own value proposition, their own messaging, right? And then this is how they were doing. They knew who their audience was, right? It wasn't huge. They hadn't gotten to scale yet, but they had enough traffic to be able to sort of work against, and they knew who their they knew who they needed to be in front of. They just didn't know exactly what their key pain points were. And these ads, every one of them were geared towards different types of pain points, and they were able to get to the answer that your CMO or your investors or your CEO or whoever really wants to know, which is how do we get in front of the right customer and how do we scale?
You had mentioned Marcus Sheraton, and when I was at Marketing Sherpa, we had him speak. That's probably about 10 or 12 years ago, and literally it was right when he had made this transition and really did exactly the blueprint you're discussing, where he went and just started asking questions of his salespeople and converted his business from an outbound to an inbound process. And he used that information to create this incredible content that ranked highly because he listened to his audience, he listened to his salespeople, and he converted all those questions to content pieces that answered it. And he got to a point where he would not even go and have a meeting with somebody unless they read a certain amount of content that prepared them. So a lot of it's that, and the sequencing of how you sequence the process. Don't ask somebody for a sale before they know enough information, because they may say no before they're ready to say no. they might have a yes inside them. They just have not understood the product and the process enough to say yes.
Yeah, Marcus points out just how effective that content can be when used in the marketing funnel to create leads that are so warm that by the time the associates talk to them, they just basically take the order. It's like he tells stories about how he'd go to meetings, and these are people who he knew from his automation system that had been to the site 11 times. And he'd start with this little spiel, and they'd stop him and say, "No, I already know all this from your site. I'm ready to buy." So this is the trend in digital. This is the trend this is the big picture. Like what the internet did is it made all of us so capable of doing so much research. Going back to like the previous eras, like the 80s and before, you had to talk to an associate just to get information. Nobody wants to talk to an associate. We all expect to get all the information we need online. So that was one of the benefits. The other, though, to your point, he now calls it assignment selling. I talked to Marcus recently. He won't, exactly as you just said, Todd, they won't even take the next call until the prospect has clicked and read these articles. So marketers think about marketing and generating marketing qualified leads, and salespeople turn marketing qualified leads into deals. Actually, that's pretty inefficient, right? And that's what Eric said up front. If the marketers give bottom of funnel content, sales enablement content to the sales team, they're going to do a much better job of following up, of helping people disqualify themselves.
Yes.
So those emails sound like this. It's like, "Thanks, a great meeting. Ready to set up the next meeting anytime. Before we talk again, please take a look at these two things here." I saw a presentation where they showed those emails. I could even find it. Take a look at these
That's
two
awesome.
things because it'll make it a better conversation. So all the people that they talk to, they know that they've given them an assignment and they know that person is going to be a warmer lead because of it, or they're not a lead. If a lot of your prospects shouldn't be in your funnel, you want them to get out. They don't want to be an unqualified lead. So help them disqualify themselves. That's another benefit.
They don't even know.
There are reasons why we all do and don't do things, right? Why we take action, why we don't, why we hit the back button, why we close the browser tab. And the things that marketers do to discourage those actions and incentivize the more profitable actions for the brand are often called psychological triggers. Technically, they may be leveraging a cognitive bias, or they might not be. Lots of things that we do as marketers are basically leveraging a cognitive bias. For example, a testimonial leverages the conformity bias. You know, the pattern interrupters and color and white space leverages the von Restorff effect. Like you can actually break down. Another day we'll do this. We'll look at a page and break down like how many. I once did this in a presentation. Like let's pull up one Amazon page. I'm going to count the number of cognitive biases they're using on you.
Yep.
And there's a lot. There's a whole bunch of them. So are they triggers? Basically, the page needs to align with the motivations of this visitor to help them make a good decision for themselves. You don't want a bad customer. You don't want a returned product. You don't want someone to buy if they don't want to, or become a lead if they're not qualified. So what we want is to raise the information level of the visitor on their terms. Yes, give them what they came for. Also, give them what we want them to have. Answer unknown questions. Provide evidence to support answers. Nobody goes to websites to read testimonials, but if you put testimonials next to the answers, quick tip: please don't make a testimonials page. Your visitors don't want to go to a testimonials page. I've never seen testimonial pages as popular pages in analytics. It's like serving someone a dish of like all parsley. It's like, that's garnish. That's not a dish. That's not the main thing. Nobody orders a glass of cherries as a cocktail. It's like it's supportive, and it belongs next to the answer it supports, right? The answer, 100% on-time service every time. Evidence. Thanks, you guys rocked it. You were right on the dot. Like, so yeah, that's an example of a psychological trigger, but you don't get that unless you reach out to the audience. And in my experience, another super quick tip, the best way to get testimonials is to simply build into your business process a mechanism for getting feedback. How'd that work for you? Did that help? Tell me what it was like to work with my team. What would you give us? And if you have any net promoter score plans to get feedback from your audience, you are also going to get testimonials, because you're going to talk to some raving fans, and all you got to do is take that one extra step to say, wow, that was awesome. Would you mind, please, if I could use, would it be okay if I use that as a testimonial on our site? It would mean the world to us. They almost always say yes. So gathering social proof and learning how to be a better company from feedback from your clients, same thing.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned as far as also it's the sequencing of where you have it. So if you have a guarantee at the top of your page before somebody even doesn't know if they even want your product, and all of a sudden you're saying, well, it's guaranteed 100%, it's zero effective. Matter of fact, it's a negative psychological trigger. And so really thinking about that sequence of the user is extremely important.
Yeah, I saw someone had me review an ad for them yesterday, and it said like, webinar free Thursday, December 15th, whatever, like, and then below that it had the content, like the topic. Like, why does anyone care what format it is, when it is, like what, no one cares. People care about themselves a lot. People care about their problems a lot. People care about brands very little. People don't care. Nobody wakes up and says, oh, I'm looking for a good webinar. Any topic will do. Nobody ever says that.
Especially not nowadays.
2 o'clock available.
Yeah, I'm looking for something to do on December 15th. No one ever does that.
I think they also see the world in which they see the world, right? So when they view content or they view something on an ad, right? You have just like you said, Andy, you got to talk to them in their language, right? If you use their words back on them, that's the thing about copywriting that cracks me up, right? It's not as complicated as we like to make it. It's an art, no question,
but there is like real fun. It's all grounded in real fundamental sort of like logical things if you really sit down and think about it. And you know, if you talk to people in the words that they use, and you know, use it in the cadence in which they use it, and you know, it's the most powerful tool you have in your tool bag.
You can't write copy as good as they can. There's no, you can't come close.
Absolutely.
There's another quote that's not mine. It's Eugene Schwartz, like copywriting legend. He wrote scientific breakthrough advertising. Here, let's see. There's my bookshelf over there. It's
Yep.
this black book right down there. He said, "Great copy isn't written; it's assembled." That makes so much sense to me. He wrote that like 50 years ago, but it really is a matter of construction. It's like, what are the elements? What are the supportive visuals? You know,
Yep.
who are the strongest voices? What is the best data point? You know, if we recently relaunched our site, I don't have it, it's over there. My process was to just take a bunch of questions that people ask me during sales. I still do tons of sales, and then just write answers and create page blocks. And then I cut them all up, and it became like a card sort exercise. The pages are assembled after I built each Lego. It's an effective way to build high converting pages, is to start with that FAQ content. What's the supportive evidence, answer evidence, call to action.
Andy, you'd said, you know, like nobody creates it, or nobody should be creating a testimonial page, you know, and your answer would be the opposite of that. If you saw it in the analytics and people were for some reason searching that out, and you saw that that was leading to a conversion, you know, downstream, but it's not, right? And that's in this particular case. And so I think that's the case across the board, right? So there's, you know, there so many marketers have questions around, like, especially if you're redesigning a website or you're building a site for the first time, you know, like, what do I do with my pricing page? You know, how do I build credibility? You know, how do I, you know, do I sell them up front with a free trial, or do I push them downstream to like a click to call schedule a demo, you know, with a salesperson? You know, they're having like fundamental business model questions, right? That ultimately lead to, you know, whatever the site, you know, ends up becoming. And so analytics, you know, especially in a redesign, obviously for first time, you know, you're going to be testing and you're going to be gathering data. But in a redesign, that's like the best thing ever, right? You have like all the data. It's telling you, like, these people are telling you what they want to see, right? And what they find most important and what they find secondly important. And so analytics from a numbers perspective, you know, also like tools, no particular ones in general, you know, but, you know, heat mapping tools, things like that really are super helpful. I find like recording tools, things like that, that are super helpful when it comes to like your checkout pages or your lead capture pages that are really like your money pages. You know, so I think those things are just, you know, it's like sometimes it's scary, like when you start with a white piece of paper, right? You know, and you're like, where do I start? So Andy, I like how you were just saying that. It's like, you know, well, that's true. You do start with a white piece of paper, but you got some building blocks, you know, that you start, you know, working on that fill in the gaps. And then by the time you're done filling those things out, you've got a page, right? And that, I think that really sort of struck home with me.
Well, if you don't spell it with a capital A, and you just say use any analytics or any data to find leaks in the bucket, your point earlier about testing messages in ads, this reminds me of not technically conversion optimization, but some channels are high stakes and low information. Other channels are lots of information but low stakes. So if you make, it's like social media, you get all this data. You post something in social media, there's likes, there's comments, there's shares, there are impressions, there's click-throughs and everything. And who cares? It's social media. Your organic reach is like 2% anyway. Why not share that thing 10 times and get as much data as you can, or make a group of ads and see if it worked. You've got a low stakes, high data channel. Use that to inform your high stakes, low data, like email marketing. Email subject lines, that kills me. I never know how to write an email subject line. It's murder. Like, how do you come up with, like, you only get one chance, you send it, you can't unsend it. It's like, was that, I wish I could have maybe tried testing it first.
So
You
true.
can test it. You can
Yes.
test it.
Yeah.
You can test it in with an ad. You can test it in social media. You can next time you write an email subject line, if you're really concerned about it, if it's a big content project that you're got a lot riding on, maybe give yourself a couple of days and share it 5 or 8 times on social media and see which of those got the most engagement.
Yep.
Or your point about ads. Yeah.
Yep.
Your homepage headline.
We find with our original research, when we do surveys, when we ask, it could be email marketing or content marketing, and we ask, marketers, like, what's your greatest barrier to success or your greatest challenge? And it's just like, it's amazing, like, what you get, and like how it tells so many different stories when you get that information. I think people, when you're looking at your analytics, you're finding leaks, when you're asking questions or doing research. I mean, it's incredible for just, I think, your overall knowledge, but also just you learn so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Eric, I think you remember working on those Anne Holland landing page handbooks with the heat maps back in 15 years ago. Boy, that was the rage. I mean, it was amazing when you actually finally started having that data to be able to visualize it. I mean,
what cracks me up is in general, like as a general rule, the makeup of a page is primarily the same over the last 10 years or whatever. What is sort of the optimal layout and things is really hasn't changed dramatically. You can do radical redesigns and different types of tests that do end up surprising you, and that's why you test. But in general, like, if you don't have anywhere to start, there are plenty of places that sort of like show you like here's the structure that you want to lay out, sort of like what Andy was saying earlier. I think too, it shouldn't matter. Like, I was just thinking about this. So copy is used in so many different places, right? The question answer sort of approach that you're saying, Andy, or have been teaching us over the last several minutes has been, it's employable everywhere, right? It's employable in your sales, presentations and in the deck. It's funny. I did a LinkedIn post about this a while back where I said something like, if I'm parachuting into a business for the first time, one of the things that I, have always sort of looked at, has been like, let's spend a couple of days just answering support tickets, like, of customers, right? Let's come in and, talk to, or spend a week with just your salespeople and just listen in on those calls and just hear. That's why I love like tools like, Gong and, different types of tools that like really allow you to be able to understand things. SharpSpring has Sales Dialer, and there's some transcription capabilities in that. And there's just all these different kinds of tools that are at your disposal that allow you to be able to see what your customers are saying. And then you can turn around and use that and slice it and dice it in so many different ways. So landing pages, yes, absolutely. Sales documentation and whatever the next slide deck is that marketing is preparing, absolutely. You need it there too. In your chat bot that you're putting together, right?
Yeah.
You know what the questions are already, right? And you are able to sort of insert that into the discussion, like as a prospect that you come to a well-optimized site like that, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know me, right? You know exactly what I'm thinking, and there's a subconscious sort of connection that even without talking to a person that you are building. You're building a relationship.
Yeah, in the same way that I don't love testimonials pages because it's like important evidence out of the flow, out of context. I don't love FAQ pages because they're like important answers out of context. But there's a couple things that are amazing about them for analytics. If you have an FAQ page that has expandable content areas where you click to expand, if you put Hotjar on that page, you'll see exactly which ones get expanded and which ones never get expanded. So at a glance, you can see what questions are truly frequently asked by your audience. Similarly, if you go to the, if you have an FAQ page and in analytics, you go to the navigation summary for that page, you can see what pages people were on right before they went there. Pages that sent your visitors to your FAQ page are almost always pages with information gaps. Why did the visitor leave this page and go to FAQ? They didn't want to have to click that. They didn't want to have to aim and tap, you know, they would rather have scrolled and found the answer, right? Aiming and tapping is way too much work. So if you can, I would look at the FAQ page's navigation summary in analytics and look closely at those pages and ask yourself, why would this visitor leave this page to go to FAQ? So there's, I think the perfect website doesn't need an FAQ page, but if you have one, you've got some awesome opportunities to do some kick-ass analysis.
You know, we've talked about, exit pops. I think that's actually a really good point, Kathleen. I didn't really think about that until now, but, understanding why people are leaving is just as important as, or the most important thing that you can sort of like spend your time on, right? I mean, there's a saying that says, it's basically make sure that before you climb the ladder, you're painting the right house. That was a Stephen Covey, right? And I probably completely butchered that statement, but you guys know what I mean. And I think, yeah, make sure you're painting the right house, right? So there's strategy around it, and then the tools and the marketing stack that you use is really just set up to be an enabler, right? To be able to serve you, not the other way around. I think we get stuck in this. I need to have this big, I sort of envision like every marketer. I mean, if it's like my credit card, like every marketer like has like the same kind of like tool set. I mean, maybe different brand names or whatever that they're subscribing to, but they're all sort of using the same marketing stack, right? They've got a chat bot, they've got, email, they've got, CRM, they've got CMSs and plugins, and they've got, I don't know, what did I miss? Pop-ups, and whatever they're advertising. Like everybody could look at their credit card statement right now and see all of those things as line items on their credit card. And the thing, and then they sort of like take this, hey, let me go and like try to stitch all of that together with like Zapier, right? Or the integration, whatever, right? And that is like, it is such a like a hard thing to do when you do that, right? Because what ends up happening is the data doesn't, like, different types of platforms, they don't talk well with each other, they don't play nicely in some cases, and Zapier is sort of like a band-aid, I mean, nothing against them. But my point is like, if the data isn't in one place and those pieces aren't talking to each other in a holistic way, and again, I'm on the soapbox of the holistic marketing approach, but like you want to know as a marketer, from the ad click or ad impression all the way through to conversion, and even afterwards, right? Because you want repeat sales and everything else. You need to know through the entire life of the lead how these steps are affecting a conversion or a new lead or what have you. And if you don't have that, you're just missing out, because you've got your budget, and there isn't a marketer that I don't, that I haven't met a marketer yet that has a decent sized budget, that doesn't wake up sort of in the middle of the night and say, oh my gosh, like how am I going to hit my number, right, for next month? Or how am I gonna, do these things? And it's not, I need to sign up for another thing, right? What it is I need to have an approach that says, here's where my dollars are being spent on the front end. I'm putting $1 in and I'm getting $2 out, right? And it's all shown and captured sort of in that life of the lead. And what makes this sort of, just makes your life easier as a marketer is you get to have a conversation in like the CEO or the CFO's language, right? At the end of the day, they don't care really. Like, yeah, maybe there's league KPIs and, you know, like you've got all your different KPIs or whatever. At the end of the day, they don't care, right? What they care about is one thing, and that's how much revenue are we driving from our ideal customers. That's what they want to know, right? And if you can talk to them in their language in that way, it makes you a rock star. And so, you know, when you have that kind of approach, I think that's the thing that really sets you apart as sort of a marketer or an entrepreneur. Is you got to be able to take all of these different things and see it all in one sort of stream or the life of the lead.
It's such a challenge. It's really overwhelming for so many people. It's like, where do I begin? Digital marketing, there's so many actions you can take. Like, which of these would have the best impact? There's so many tools you can use, so many topics, so many formats, so many channels, so many influencers, so many. And I think marketing technology, people tend to overbuy. You know, they buy a giant tool that does millions of things and they're never going to use them all. So yeah, it's what the world needs, and there's a shortage of this skill, I think, in the market. It's just the legit strategist who can look at a set of, look at an audience, look at the messaging, look at the pages, look at the traffic drivers, and then prioritize what should be done. I love where this all started, because we said, what can you do without spending money? Like, what are content changes you could make? So everything that you do has a higher low R and a higher low I, right? ROI. So the things that have the lower I, I'm very biased toward things that are at the bottom of the marketing or sales funnel. I'm very biased towards things that can be done quickly. You know, it's a sport and you got to love it. It's like, my job today is to find low-hanging fruit that will make a difference for this brand, something I can see in analytics. If it doesn't affect traffic or conversions, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So
if it doesn't connect to revenue, and that can be even in the form of content, right? I mean, if you can't tie content to ROI, then, you know, you're just asking for trouble, right? You've got to, in your budget, you have to be able to do that. And I think there is a huge opportunity for marketers who sort of understand that and can, like, bring all of their, you know, their data and, you know, their different tools and everything, like, you know, under sort of, you know, a single roof that sort of answers those questions where those things are talking, you know, to each other. I'm a firm believer that marketing tools, you know, platforms, things like that, you know, if they're used properly, I mean, that's the, you know, it's like a game changer for you as a marketer. The problem I have is when you try to like solve a problem, you know, with a thing instead of actually understanding what the core issue is, right? And then finding a right platform, you know, that solves that problem. And you know, I think, you know, that's honestly, you know, this is, by the way, not like I'm not pitching anything or, you know, whatever, but that's what I'm excited about with, you know, with Perfect Audience and with SharpSpring, is because, you know, that's our goal, right? Is to make sure that you as an agency or you as a marketer, you're like trying to, you know, you're trying to drive revenue, you're trying to generate leads, you know, you're looking at ways to be able to bring in, you know, more dollars into the organization through your marketing efforts, and you need to know how to measure those, and you need to know, you know, how to drive revenue, and you need platforms that, you know, sort of enable you to do that.
Well, those are tools that I have a bias toward also, because remarketing creates more value from every visitor you have.
Yeah.
And a tool like SharpSpring connects that final dot. You need to know really the bottom of the funnel. You need data and insights into where this person came from, how many times they visited. Is it, you know, you can basically see, like, is this a warm or cold lead? Is it at the core of everyone's MarTech stack should be a database. It's all the people, you know. So those things, you can't do marketing without them.
You know, you brought up a great point too, Andy, on just that aspect of strategy and how important that is. And we see that repeatedly in our research, that lack of an effective strategy, whether it be tactical, like, you know, content marketing or lead generation, or a data topic or a technology topic, lack of an effective strategy. And I think just like how everything fits together is definitely a pain point for marketers. We've never had marketers say that, a pain point is they're not doing enough, that there's not enough tactics to keep the day busy. But kind of how everything fits together, and maybe a good illustration is like when we work with companies on like a research project, a lot of times, and it's challenging sometimes because we have to kind of go back and reinforce, like, did you use your research to do this, this, and this? Like, did you squeeze enough juice out of it? There's probably a lot of other things you could use it for, and many times, marketers go on to the next tactic, and so we're always kind of encouraging. I think it goes back to that low-hanging fruit, or are there things you can do, that are free or low cost? Well, a lot of times you have it there. It's just a matter of, can you use it in different formats? Can you take that really good blog post you wrote and create a video out of it? Can you create an infographic from the research you have, or whatever the case may be? But I think there's a lot there, and that pain point of strategy and how it all fits together is definitely a real issue.
Yeah, I think people make stuff and then plan to promote it, but the plan to promote it should be done before you start making it. I mean, everyone's like, oh, content promotion is more important than content creation, or you should spend, have you heard this at conferences? You should spend 80% of your time promoting content and only 20% creating it. It's like people come up with numbers like this. I think it's impossible. Have you ever tried tracking your time and number of minutes you spent? Like, I can never tell. Keyword research, is that creating content or promoting content? I'm confused.
Right.
Anyway, build content that's easy to promote, or plan the promotion prior to making the thing. I can't imagine someone actually doing a research project without knowing how they're going to get the word out there. It's crazy. I know that people do understand the importance of content promotion, but it's that thinking should be built into the content. Content should be built to rank or to be shared, or in collaboration with an influencer, or with the visuals in mind, or with the idea of repurposing planned out in advance.
Right. So we are definitely getting close to our time here. So our first question is, how would you suggest going about getting the answers for the questions that you shared? So if it's your salesperson, obviously that might be easy enough, and you shared some good strategies for that. But outside of that, when it's your prospects, how do you go about getting that data? Maybe Todd, this is a great question for you.
I mean, talking to your salespeople, observing, like Andy had said, information on your website, doing, original research. Obviously, we like to do that, but I would say, as marketers, just get in the habit of listening. Sometimes we just talk way too much, and we need to listen.
Awesome. Cool. Well, then our second question is, can building a bunch of separate landing pages hurt my site's SEO?
That's fun. I'll take that real quick.
This one for you.
I'm not sure how other people define it, but in my mind, a landing page is a page designed for one specific source of traffic with one very specific goal. So a landing page might be the page that you arrive at after clicking on an email or clicking on an ad, and that page has really just one purpose. That page is trying to get you to convert, maybe right on the page, like a classic unbound style landing page. So in that case, SEO is irrelevant. Don't worry at all about SEO. You have a different plan to get traffic. We just said, create content with a plan for promotion. And as one of those, a PPC or email landing page has nothing at all to do with SEO. It's not. You could make it no index and keep it out of Google if you want. If you could make 10 million of them, if you make an extraordinary number, you might want to no index them, or put them in a folder where your robots.txt file excludes them from the crawl, because you don't want to waste Google's time. Right. If the landing page is just like the analytics site content landing pages report, in other words, it's just the first page that the person visits, is there a disadvantage to having a larger site? Not that I know of. No, I don't think so. There are weird things that happen at very, very large scale websites where you need to, create multiple sitemap.xml files, or, very carefully manage Google's crawl budget. But these are sites with tens of thousands of pages, not relevant to almost anyone that I talk to day to day.
Awesome.
I had one real quick question, and so how do we learn a little bit more about you and your services and what you're doing over at Orbit, Andy?
Orbit is actually just a web design company, but part of this was about web design. So orbitmedia.com, you can see our recent redesign, which incorporates everything we just discussed. I write an article on our blog every 2 weeks, so orbitmedia.com/blog, and everyone is welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. Those are my two best networks. I never use the other one, the Face World one with the blue F. That's
The other
I think
one.
that's B2C or something. I don't know what that is.
Sure.
That's awesome.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, everyone.